Hello, welcome to the Leadership Development Council call for NCHL's Lens community. First, I want to introduce our facilitator for the call today. I'm really appreciative to Janine Phillips from Northwell, who's stepping in Alice's stead for the call this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from. So thanks, Janine, for being here.
It is my pleasure. Nice to meet everyone.
I also wanted to provide you all with some NCHL updates and just some general business, and then we can get started on to today's discussion and agenda. So first, foremost, we sent out notification in early November that our CEO, Leanne Swanson, had resigned from her position. I wanted to give you all a brief update on next steps related to that. So first, our board of directors, is discussing some interim leadership assignments, but they are also fully committed to rehiring a full-time CEO, and they plan to begin that search and recruitment process in early January. We're also undertaking some strategic planning processes, so you should be hearing more about next steps related to NCHL strategic planning in the next couple of weeks. Additionally, we have membership renewals at the end of the month. So membership renewals for each of your organizations are due at the end of December. We are also sending out information to your primary contacts regarding your contact lists for each council. So if there are people you want to add to this council, or if you want to be added to an additional council and that's part of your Lens organizational membership, now's the time to do it so you get all of those 2024 council invitations, access to the portal and past meetings, etc. Additionally, Jen hosted an informational session with our partners at the Healthcare Coaching Institute this morning around our 2024 coaching certification program. That registration is open now and it closes on March 27th. There's a limited amount of people who can register for the coach certification program. I think it caps out at 20. And it will begin on May 1st. So if you are interested in signing up for a coach certification program for 2024, please let us know or see our website or additional information about how you can register. Now I'm going to jump over to Janine, who's going to kickstart the discussion today. It's primarily really just reflections on 2023 and planning for 2024, so we can continue to make sure that this council is bringing significant value to both you and your organization. The one update I will share before we jump into the agenda related to this council is mid-year, we changed the cadence for this council to monthly instead of every other month. That is our plan moving into 2024 as well. We still plan to maintain this council meeting on a monthly basis, and the cadence will typically remain the same. So the next meeting would be Thursday, January 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and it will follow that typical cadence moving into the new year. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to let Jen or I know. I also failed to introduce Jen Petit, our manager with NCHL, who's also helping support the Lens program in the interim and into 2024. So I'm really excited for her to meet all of you as well. So thank you, Janine. I'm going to hand things over to you for now.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much. So today we want to keep this really interactive and be sharing ideas, sort of recapping, given the time of year, recapping our 2023, sort of collectively pooling together some ideas of what have our successes been and what do we also see as the challenges for 2024, as well as what would be some of the areas that NCHL can focus on, especially within this council, so that we can bring the content that will be most helpful for this group well into 2024. So my name is Janine Phillips. I'm a program director at the Center for Learning and Innovation for Northwell Health. So I've had the privilege of working with Patty Edelman for the past almost 8 years. And so I'm happy to kind of start with sharing one of the successes from the program that I oversee. And then maybe you can sort of think as I'm talking as well about what areas you might want to share. So in the past year or sort of year plus, our physician executive and executive leadership development program, which is really geared toward tooling our leaders who are at the leader of leader level, who are preparing for executive leadership roles, to get the skills and experiences and organizational awareness that they need to prepare for those executive roles. And going about 5+ years back, the programs were really separate, and the physician track would have 90% of their courses separately, and the administrative clinical side would have theirs separately as well. And we've really, over the past year or two, worked hard to integrate those, to really personify that model of collaboration between physician leadership, clinical leadership, and administrative leadership. And so, although there's certainly some challenges that we've experienced, it really we've gotten a really great reception from the population, that they really benefit from getting those perspectives from both sides. Because as many of you probably experience in your organizations, there is a different way of thinking, skill sets in terms of approaching administrative problems and sort of large strategic initiatives and objectives. And so that's one of the areas that I am most proud of from my area. So what ideas do you have? What are some of your biggest successes in 2023 related to leadership development? Yeah, of course.
Janine, this is just because you started this off from Northwell, we just wrapped up our Crossroads cohort that we, our executive development program with Northwell, the great partnership. And I just, after having done another year of the program, it's just it was a real highlight. I came into the role 9 months ago, and so to just be a part of that executive learning opportunity, and then we just went through the evaluations the other day, and just yesterday, and just hearing the experiences of all of the leaders that they had through the experience of the mentors and the delegates, and just how unique it was. In the program, we'd hear the participants and mentors talk about how meaningful that relationship was too. So just a real highlight, I think, for us. And since Janine started, it was a close partnership with Intermountain and Northwell. So just wanted to highlight that. And then, another highlight for us has been to kind of rethink. So I'm just so curious. I love what Janine was saying about bringing physician and clinical and operational leadership together. And we're actually identified in some ways the opposite, that we needed to put a little bit more intentional specificity around clinical leadership development, because we have sort of had an all-comer approach over the years, and have actually identified that maybe we need to continue what we're doing with a more connected approach, but then also to put that some specificity around clinical leadership development, both for nursing, physical therapy, whatever clinical leaders moving into leadership roles, and physician leader development. So we now have a program manager whose responsibility is to oversee, kind of that function of clinical leadership development in collaboration with his program manager peers in leadership development, so that there's still a close connection, but just to find that space for, where do we need to put a little bit of unique specificity into those leaders moving into leadership roles.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, and you're right. The Crossroads program is so amazing. And I just love that the collaboration just breeds so much enthusiasm and excitement. And I think it only leads to more collaboration, even within the organization,
Absolutely.
kind of itself. And I think it's just a wonderful model. And it just kind of plants those seeds of continuing those collaborations, which is very similar to what we all do here on NCHL as well. So thank you so much for that. How about any other ideas of greatest successes in 2024?
I'm happy to share too, Janine. I think earlier this year, we had the opportunity to present to the group our internal podcast that we call Lessons to Lead, where we interview more so some of our middle level leaders on topics that we think will be interesting for more of our aspiring or frontline managers. And so we were excited to launched it last year, actually, but weren't sure really how it would be received. Would we really get the traction? You know, we always aimed for about 25-minute, 30-minute conversations. We only have ability to kind of put it on our internal intranet to access. So you can't, put it on your phone and necessarily listen to it on your commute. But we have been really pleasantly surprised by how it's been received. I think we're over 15,000 listens at this point, and continuing to look at, what are those most interesting topics, and if anyone else is doing it or might be interested to know what some of our top hits have been. We did an episode where we didn't interview leaders, we interviewed employees. And the topic was why they left the organization and came back. And so it was really, I think there was something, kind of compelling. We called it, why I left UPMC. And we got lots of folks listening to it, but also sort of hearing, I think, a little bit of what was it like to leave? What were the real issues and challenges that they were facing? And how did they overcome that to come back? And another one focused on, unfortunately, which I'm sure is a big topic for all of you, managing low performers, that we titled something like "You're Fired." No, wait, not yet. I don't know. So my team is very creative that likes to create them and name them. But those have been sort of a hit for us. We're going to continue to do those as long as there's interest. So not so much from a true program perspective, but that's been one of our things. The other is that talking on this theme of physician-focused education, our team presented at the conference about our physician leadership program, and we've reached really a nice mass of alumni at this point. I think we just hit over 300 in our last graduating cohort. And this year we were able to then, because we launched it, did our kind of hard launch in the start of 2020. They were all supposed to be in-person cohorts, right? And then we got a big wrench thrown in right as we launched those. And so we had a number, and of course we've adapted to offer a couple in person, but mostly virtually. A lot of cohort members, given our geographic spread too, have not met each other. And so we held our first alumni event this year, bringing as many of those alumni together as we could, just to have interaction. A lot of them sit maybe across the state of Pennsylvania from us. And it was just a really nice opportunity to be together, to hear some consistent messaging, and just to make some of those connections that they weren't able to either virtually or with some of their colleagues that they didn't interact with. So those are a couple of our wins, and very curious to continue to hear everyone else sharing.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I agree with you. I think it's great when you can continue those valuable relationships and connections. Sometimes we hear from our participants that one of the best parts of being in these programs is like, having a colleague that you wouldn't have called even if they work in the same department as you, but because of the program, you get to establish that rapport and that connection, and then you just kind of continue to build out from there. So thank you so much for sharing that. I see that we have Esther Margolid, who's also from Northwell, who just joined us. Esther, we're just talking about sharing our biggest successes from 2023 in leadership development. Bridget, hi, nice to see you as well.
Thank you.
So we're sharing our biggest successes of 2023 and would love to hear from as many as possible.
Awesome, thank you.
Great. All right. Anyone else want to share your biggest successes?
Has everybody gone already? Or that's going to share? I don't want to jump ahead.
Bridget, you're up.
It's kind of the line. Okay, so I'm part of leader development, but I'm also in an interim director role of employee experience with Mass General Brigham. So this year, the by far biggest accomplishment has been we've launched our first employee-wide, entity-wide engagement survey. And we've got right about now 83,000 that took the survey, if you will. And we had our goal was 50% overall, and then 20% for each entity or job family. And we met that goal. Surprisingly, we were like amazed. And we coupled that with magnet and culture of safety as well. So we had 3 surveys in one. It was, oh my gosh, we don't have enough time to talk about the work. I'm a team of 2, myself and a consultant, and then we got help from our project manager and a technology person. And that was about it for our core team. We worked with a vendor called Qualtrics, and WSA helped us as well. But it was a labor of love, I would say. But it was a humongous undertaking, and our mouths were open. We met that goal. So we're very happy about that because it was the first one ever. So and even the physicians responded. So they typically don't respond a lot of times. So that was a huge success. So right now we're in the process of giving dashboard access and going over the training and trying to prepare our business partners who are already inundated with a lot of other, we've got a lot of projects going on at once at MGB. So poor business, and I was a business partner too, so I feel their pain for sure. But the engagement survey by far is a entity-wide success. We can't just take all the credit ourselves, but so that was the biggest accomplishment for the year for sure. And our results weren't too bad either, again, given the fact it was our first one ever. So I'm tired just talking about it, but again, it was all worth it. Like I said, a huge labor of love. But yeah, that was our by far big, and it's impacting all our other departments as well, in leadership development included, because there'll be a lot of takeaways. We're combining a lot of stuff too, because employee engagement kind of covers everything, right? Doesn't matter your department, you still have to have people engaged in the process. So the work that we've done is going to help give each of those specific entities and departments some really good data to work from. And whether it's talent acquisition or finance or marketing, whatever, everyone had a say-so in that data and that feedback. So it's going to be something we work on for a while as far as the results, and start working on some really good goals wrapped around those findings. So
that is so exciting. Congratulations, first of
Thank
all. And that's
you.
so wonderful and impressive that it's the first one ever organization-wide and you met your goals of the very first time.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever information you get will just sort of help to fuel, I'm sure, amazing changes into the future. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. I hope that wasn't too long-winded, but yeah, thank you.
No, it's perfect.
Great. Thank you.
So, and I think we were just joined by Rachel. Rachel, we are talking about highlighting our biggest successes in 2023 related to leadership development. So if
Hi, thanks for catching me up. I appreciate that. Sorry, I joined a
Okay.
few minutes late. I was listening and I was thinking like, wow, and just started reflecting. So thank you.
Great. All right. So if we do have some others, unless anyone else wants to share. So we can move forward. Next we're going to talk about what we see as our biggest challenges in 2024. So looking ahead into 2024, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see for leadership development within your organizations? Yes, Corey, thank you.
Yeah, and this might be a shared challenge, but I think our 2024 budget looks different than budgets have looked in the past. And so I think kind of embracing stewardship as a really important priority in how we deliver leadership development, and ensuring that not that we haven't focused on impact in the past, but really putting a fine lens to impact and ROI, so that we're ensuring that our investments are delivering the expected impact for the organization. So it's not that we haven't done that in the past; it's just putting a bigger spotlight on doing that work. So it's it's not a new way of thinking, but it's a more, a more focused, I think a bigger focus in that area for 2024. So I think we're still kind of grappling around, what that's going to look like for programming in 2024. But that's certainly top of mind. And how can we be creative around that and how we deliver so that we're still making great impact?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think that probably is pretty universal, and dealing with, budgetary constraints, and how that relates to growth, because you always want to continue to improve and bring bring new leadership development, but you don't want to sacrifice quality of anything that's currently existing. And you want to ensure that you're bringing high quality and, impactful leadership development. So definitely agree. Anyone else feeling a similar challenge in budget, sort of budget constraints?
I'll just add, hello, everyone. I'm the GEM-LENS representative from the universities, the MHA programs. And I would say in light of budget, we're wondering how to make sure all of our students that want to be in a training program, a leadership development program, can achieve that. Wondering if some of the fellowship opportunities may be limited, not only in the role itself, however, in perhaps the experiences. So that's something we've been thinking about within our program, and kind of hearing some signals that it might be a challenging year.
Yeah. So it's a great question from Megan. So curious how this council structure could support, sorry, it just popped away, could support budget challenges related to learning and development. Anyone have any ideas? We can definitely put that. That's actually one of our agenda items that we're going to talk about later. So I think we can definitely add that to one of the ways in which we can, bring value to this council and help individuals in 2024.
I think just an idea, wondering if, what we already do here, which is sharing best practices and sharing outcomes of new things that we're trying, like just highlighting if anyone has been creative in delivering on a lean budget in some new way, like adding that in as a way to knowledge share across the group.
Definitely.
I like that, Rachel. I'll add too, and I hesitate to even say it because I know what our plates look like, but I think we've bounced the idea before of potentially almost doing kind of a content creation or something together as a team. If there's a common need or some topic or gap that we're seeing, especially what might be things that evolve for us in healthcare unexpectedly at times, if there would ever be interest in almost doing, a few of us getting together and building something that could be used across organizations. Just a thought that came to mind.
Definitely. And I was also thinking, as you were talking, like, what are some of the biggest areas that are impacting our programs related to budget? I know, just thinking about the program that I work on, coaching and sort of upskill, the amount of coaching, right, that we're doing, and sort of upskilling individuals in the organization so that more are able to provide that coaching support is definitely one of them. Just curious, what are other areas that you see as being most impacted by budgetary challenges? Are there any programs or any initiatives in particular that you're feeling you would have liked to start and would have a big impact and are unable due to finances?
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead,
sorry,
Esther.
go ahead, please.
No, please. I invite you.
One person, also part of Northwell Health with Rachel and Janine. Our team, Career and Performance Development, we lead an org-wide mentorship program, which the answer to your question, Janine, I think is technology for us. Where right now we use, like a matching platform and a platform that's like a little bit of a metaverse for our participants. And right now we're somewhat limited on the size of our cohorts because of the seat allotment from a technology standpoint. So to be able to manage for that, we're taking a more informal approach to mentorship, while there's kind of like a seat limitation on the formal side of mentorship. So something that we're doing.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, Corey, what were you going to say?
Oh, I would just say, we have a fair, I talked briefly about clinical leadership development, physician leadership development, specifically. Some early ideas are just having to be rethunk a little bit about how we go about that. I mean, it's a large group of people we need to reach with this development opportunity. And so figuring out how to do that at scale for a population that has really limited schedules, and trying to be creative about that. I'm just seeing that some of the early ideas are kind of like, oh, okay, well, maybe we need to shift and do something a little differently, like an off-site retreat at a fancy hotel isn't not that was like fully an idea, but it's like, okay, like that's probably not going to deliver the extra impact. It might make people feel special for people, but I just think rethinking the idea of reach and impact really comprehensively. So
Great.
and the other thing I would just say is, to what Esther, I would dovetail on that, is just rethinking, technology investments as well.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's the areas that you're talking about are areas that we could probably collaborate and share best practices. I know that from the working with physicians is a big part of my role, overseeing our Physician Leadership Institute. And we do leadership development with physicians at all different, from medical school all the way up through senior executive leadership. And what I personally find is the earlier you go in the career, the more important it is to have that separate, or the higher the likelihood to engage in leadership development with others who are in your, who share either your clinical background. So we find that the higher up or sort of more executive leadership is where when we join those two groups together, we have the high success.
Oh, I love that. Janine, sorry, just a sidebar, would you put your email in the chat? Because I would love to connect our program manager for clinical leadership development with you, as he's thinking about how to execute some of these programs in 2024. I think you'd be that would be very valuable for him to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to. I just put it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any other ideas of biggest challenges for 2024? I know for one of the areas for the program for our executive leadership development program, which is that we're working on, and Esther and Rachel, I know that you are both familiar with this, is looking at how we are preparing participants who enter the program for specific roles that they have basically been selected and chosen for the program to enter into those roles. And so we're trying to figure out, what does immersion look like? How can we embed programmatic components within the program that enables individuals to get the experience and exposure that really helps them to be effective on day one of that new role that they'll be starting. So kind of taking the theoretical and really coupling it with some real world experiences, having that mentorship, having that sponsorship, and really following that career plan and embedding that along with the peer support that you also get within the program. And so, that's one of the challenges, is figuring out how to operationalize that in a very large organization. And also, how do you consider all of the strategic initiatives and priorities of the organization as you think about upskilling our executive leaders for their new roles. So that's one of our challenges. And if anybody has any ideas, and would love to connect with you offline as well, but that's one of the challenges that is currently facing my team. It's very fun, I can say, to sit down and brainstorm and have all different ideas. I think, and Esther, we've really enjoyed your collaboration on that with the CPD team, but definitely a challenge to think about how to do that with 50 rising executive leaders. Any other goals that you have that you're really looking forward to achieving, or maybe that you had to table from 2023 and sort of lift and shift into 2024? What's top of mind?
I can share. I'm sorry, Terry had to leave for some reason. She's actually our director of leader development, but I'm on her team as well. Like I said, I'm doing kind of split roles here. But I know one of the goals that we have for FY24 is to have more attendance from our leaders attending these sessions that we've called Essentials of Leadership and Management Fundamentals. So Management Fundamentals is for leaders that have like 1 to 3 years of experience. So kind of like a pseudo manager boot camp. And the Essentials of Leadership is for that more seasoned leader that's been around, obviously more than 3 years, et cetera. And we're tying in the Clifton strengths. So we've got all of them had their strengths done, as well as the Korn Ferry competencies, right? So we want to pick 10 as an organization. So each meeting of Essential Leadership has a theme to it, where we do two competencies and we try tying strengths and all that. So at the beginning, of course, we saw some good attendance, but it's starting to wane, right? And so our goal and our challenge is now to try to find ways to get more attendance. But I will say, like everybody else is probably managers are feeling overwhelmed. It's always a bunch of projects going on at once. So kind of like that, trying to drink from a fire hose kind of feeling for a lot of people. And so it's just trying to get them to continue being engaged in the process, because it's a huge culture shift. Like I said, we were 17 entities now under one umbrella. So it's a lot of 17 different thoughts and processes prior to now coming together as one. So trying to get everybody on the same page, understanding the importance of what this is, getting everybody to understand what these competencies are, how they tie into everything, the importance of focusing on strengths versus just looking at weaknesses, all of that, and then getting to attend these meetings and retain and pass forward what they've learned in these sessions. So kind of taking what they're learning and then putting it into action. But yeah, right now it's more attendance. So we have that goal of trying to increase. We haven't talked about how we're going to do it yet. So, but trying to think about how we can get them more engaged in the process. Nobody likes change. They have a lot coming at them, of course, we understand that, but just getting them to attend and come to more of the meetings to get more of the good stuff we're trying to pass on to them to help, their goals or whatever they have, their responsibilities are, but just getting people to attend and then retain what they're learning. Not easy.
Yeah. No.
So yep, that's just one of a few I can think of. So, but Terry would be the best, but maybe next time she'll be able to delve more into that. So, but that's what we got going on right now.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. So if we don't have any more challenges, the biggest challenges for 2024, we can move on to talking about what are some topics and presentations that you would look for from the Lens Council in 2024. What are, if we could sort of coalesce or get a list together of some of the topics and presentations that you would most like to learn about and hear about in the next year? how everyone is measuring impact. Yeah. So measuring impact, metrics, definitely a great topic. Any other ideas?
Maybe what are the new skill sets that we need to really build muscles with leadership now and into the future? I don't know if this is very new, but definitely an area that we want to be focusing on is how do we enable leaders to have conversations more around wellness, whether it's stress management, burnout, because what we're seeing is many leaders don't go down that avenue because it kind of can turn into employee relations space. So they're less likely to open up with those conversations unless a team member comes to them first. But that's just kind of one example of newer skills, newer capabilities to build with leaders. So I just wonder if we talk more about like the skill sets needed down the line. I don't know if that would be helpful to others.
So do you think really focusing on that wellness, or coming up with,
wellness,
and coming up with
example,
others, right?
Yep.
So kind of comparing and contrasting some of the competencies that various organizations are working on so that we could figure out what gaps we might need to fill. I agree. I think that's a really great. Megan.
Just a quick follow-up question, Esther, is who do you currently look to as experts in identifying those future competencies? Because that would be something that we would look to maybe engage with or have them present, or if there's organizations, I'm curious who you look to currently or resources you look at currently.
From a programmatic standpoint or just in general?
Yeah.
Janine and Rachel, I'm gonna defer to you guys because you guys are the program people. But I think it's a mix of external best practices as well as internal feedback. But Janine, Rachel, please.
So do you mean specifically for that topic or in general?
Generally, yeah. We have a well-being council, so that is one aspect I would link to potentially in terms of the well-being competencies and having a really in-depth conversation. Perhaps we invite the well-being council members to a leadership development call in 2024 to have that specific conversation. But I am curious, as we revisit our own competency model at NCHL, we revalidate what those future competencies look like. That's definitely a very tedious task. So I am curious in the interim what other resources everyone is using as they build their own like list of future competencies, and who are the experts you're turning to right now.
Yeah, Rachel, I see your hand is up.
So I feel like everywhere and anywhere we can possibly listen, we do. And it's funny, I just had Patty, our VP here, and I just had we've had many conversations about this, but I feel like one of the most important things that we do as a learning and development team is we consider ourselves content experts, in the space of leadership development, but of course we don't know everything about everyone and all knowing. So, if there is one skill set, I think that we try to develop within each of our team members here is the ability. It's kind of like, how they talk about kids in school today. It's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing where to go to get the answers more than it is about having the answers. And I feel like we try to develop that in all of our team members here in like identify who it is you need to talk to, whether it's a learning needs assessment, whether it's our course evaluation feedback, whether it's just listening in the current leadership development classes and programs that we're creating and we're holding, we're listening to what leaders have to say. If it's a focus group, if it's leveraging engagement data, and really pulling together and listening and identifying everywhere and anywhere that we can and collating all of that information and then looking across. So, okay, our, executive stakeholders are saying this, our organizational values, which has been a big thing that steers us, because our values are behaviorally based so that we can pull from there. These are Northwell values. These are executive stakeholders' feedback. This is the actual leader leaders that we need to develop. This is their feedback. These are the people who report to those leaders, and this is their feedback. This is the, learning and development team's feedback. And then how do we look across to where those commonalities are? And then how do we use that to inform strategy for the following year? And I feel like it's something that Janine and I and the rest of the team are always doing across our programs, and something we're always thinking about, especially at the end of 23 into 24. But I think as L&D professionals, our job is always ask and always listen and collaborating, whether it's with Esther's team or our experience team. Like, they're all stakeholders, and we're just constantly listening to keep our finger on the pulse of what the organization needs, because it's not just about leaders. It's not just about healthcare leaders. For us, it's specifically about leaders at Northwell Health. And that's the value of having internal corporate university, right? That we can hopefully try to hit that nail on the head, that it's not this generic leadership development, but it's like this targeted, these are your challenges here at Northwell moving into 24, and how can we equip you to be successful?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. And I think that would be so valuable if many of our organizations could do that. And then we share that data, we share that information with each other, because it's true that every organization is going to have its own unique, strategy and, challenges, but there may be some things that are common that we haven't thought of. I know that we just recently had a conversation with Concentric that, is our vendor for our 360 for our executive leadership development program. And, we just realized that we've been using the same 360 and there could be ways to refresh it, looking at how the organization has changed and how do the competencies, how we measure them, and even how we define them and the verbiage that we use as we discuss them. Just one example was, we have change management, and the individual that we were speaking with was like, it's really change leadership. And even the way in which we, define and present, and give those objectives for each of the competencies is something that we may need to look at. And so we're going through an exercise with them. Again, the sort of budget question comes in because, we do want to go through that exercise with them where they can share, yes, these are some tried and true competencies that we have been measuring recently in other organizations. So just kind of goes along with, Rachel, your point about, keeping our eyes and ears open, knowing where to go, and then continuously refining. Yeah. That's great. And what other topics? What are some topics that you'd like to see, or presentations you'd like to see things presented on?
I have a question. Has anybody seen or done any work around psychological safety in their areas? Yeah, that'd be. I'm having dialogue with our VP about that, and because with that survey I talked about, a lot of that came out where people just aren't. That's why we were shocked we got the results we did, because a lot of people were leery about the survey, and just not feeling comfortable to be able to share concerns. So people just quit, right? And so it could have been resolved if there was a knowledge or better understanding of what psychological safety means, and have our leaders really understand, because everybody's an employee, regardless of your role at some point, right? So just having them understand how important that is and how critical it is in ensuring that you've got a group of people that are fully engaged, they're feeling respected, they're getting challenged in their work, all of that ties into, but how comfortable are they to share good, bad, ugly, and different, and not feel any type of, they're going to have retaliation or repercussions for that. So just wondering if there's, if you have any courses, or if you've got trainings, or how have you all addressed that, and has it been incorporated into your cultures as a way of doing business, providing a psychologically safe environment? That would be good.
I have I don't want to keep talking, but I have an example, and actually, Corey, it's from an Intermountain example. So Intermountain and Northwell collaborate on a leadership development program, and we actually did a psychological safety education session with one of the Intermountain physician leaders. And his name, oh, I can't remember his name. Oh, it just escapes me. I have to look at it. He was so wonderful. He was a physician leader, or he is a physician leader. And he did the most, and I wish I could say I had a hand in developing.
Was it
the
Dr.
content.
Province?
No,
No.
that wasn't his name. I'll have to go. He was so wonderful. He was so wonderful in the planning. I mean, he was just so authentic. I'll have to look to give him his credit. He presented and did a workshop for us, and he did it through, and it was so beautifully done. He educated about psych safety by creating almost like it was a virtual session. I mean, the fact that it was so amazing and it was virtual, but he created what he called like a laboratory of psych safety in the session by demonstrating vulnerability. And he shared some like deeply personal things, but it was his storytelling, and it was his vulnerability, and it was the encouragement of vulnerability. Oh my gosh, sorry, Lisa, I'm so loud. Dr. Shane Lewis.
Oh yes, Dr. Lewis.
Lisa just texted me. I'm too loud. She apparently can
I
hear
was
me.
just IMing Robin. I was like, who does psych safety in Crossroads? Yes, he's wonderful.
Oh, it was like witnessing like a masterpiece. He created this environment. So he taught psych safety by creating it in a group of strangers. And that he used it almost as like an in case, like you were part of the case of psych safety and creating it here today. And people shared some really, really vulnerable stories. And it was just like, you just left feeling so like, I don't want to say like heavy in a way, but light at the same. It was just, he did really, really beautiful job. And it really wasn't around, this is what psych safety is. This is how you do it. It was not that at all. It was creating vulnerability and safety within the session, and then kind of debriefing that. So it was just beautifully done.
Wow, that would be, and I think it gave more credibility too, because he was a physician, and so they probably felt even more like they could relate to that person. And it wasn't, some professor or instructor from somewhere that's all they do. So it probably had more authenticity for them, and they were more receptive to that. But that sounds absolutely amazing and wonderful. And we do have a physician, but he's only like one of how many thousand, but he gets it. I call him an anomaly because he's a heart surgeon, but he has an OD mind. So that's a very rare combination. And so we love him. And so just maybe pick his brain to get some thoughts about that. But that sounds wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing. But yeah, I've been trying to throw that out here and there because I listen a lot and kind of pick up on people's vibes and stuff. And and it's like, people don't feel safe to say stuff. And there's like these unwritten rules of how you're supposed to be, but at the end of the day, you're still human. We all have feelings, and we're all probably going through the same things, but just don't feel comfortable enough to share it in a setting where you're not going to feel like you're judged or, oh, I'm gonna mark that against you in your review because it shouldn't be like that. People should be allowed to just respectfully share, even if they disagree, but not feel like, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that, and beat yourself up because you were a little vulnerable. But we all need to be allowed to be vulnerable at some point in time. So I think that's awesome. So thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing that. So see what I can do.
I feel like you're like at like the ideal point in time to integrate this into your culture, because what we see here, we have an experience strategy team that rolls out we call it the experience survey here. And what they do post-survey when leaders get results is also provide leaders with tools, because they just may not know how to go about it, how to create this environment of vulnerability and psych safety. So you're probably and this is probably why you're asking the question, but just like what a key point in time to do this. We at Northwell a year and a half ago, we refreshed, to Megan's point earlier, we refreshed our competency model. We call it values and commitments. And we actually weaved psych safety into every single one.
Wow.
We have, for example, truly compassionate is one of our values. So how do you create an environment? And we kind of have behaviors that list out how you do that. So we never use the word psych safety in the descriptions, but it's embedded, within it. And then teams like Rachel and Janine and others kind of take that and turn it into something beautiful, like courses and programs and offerings and tools. So yeah.
Amazing.
It's a
Thank
great
you
one.
so much. I'm feeling hopeful. So Masternaut is, like I said, undertaking, they're getting a whole body lift, not just a facelift. They're getting the whole shebang, right? So it's a humongous, tremendous culture shift. It's just a bunch of shifts going on. And we're looking for a new CHRO now. So we're having an interim. So there's just a lot of changes going on. So we're in the process of creating values. Then we don't have values yet. So even that's an opportunity out, because each entity wants to keep their own. It's like, no, because you're not that no more. We're now MGB. You're not Faulkner, you're not Spalding, you're not Wentworth Douglas, we are MGB. So it's a lot of change management, a lot of shifting and trying to be sensitive to that. But the same token, the bus is still moving, right? You still have to, people are still leaving and all that. So it's a lot of work, but I think that's a fabulous idea of incorporating that into the values, because it's a whole culture shift. It's going to be a tremendous lift, like moving the Titanic, if you will, a culture shift, but it's not impossible. And I think not calling it psychological safety, because, I'm in Florida, but they're in Boston. So they're right. Amy Edmondson, who wrote that book, is right there at Harvard. So she's like around the street. So we don't want to necessarily have that in their face, but more, like I said, a like kind of quality, I call them, like so another physician or a CNO or chief nursing officer, somebody that's on the ground with them that understands their language to be able to help incorporate and be champions, if you will, of this type of work. Because I think they all know it's important and need it. It's just a matter of, making it a priority so that we're able to incorporate that into the work that we do. So again, thank you so much. I feel enlightened and and glad I was able to come today and learn this stuff, because it'll definitely be something I take back to our leadership team. And because I'm not going to give up. I'm not getting quite the traction, but I'm not going to give up, because I think it's too important to put that in there somewhere. It has a home, it has a place. So
Yeah, no, and I agree that sort of the behaviors, right? The culture, the creating that trust and connection, so important. So, kind of with psychological safety, once you label it, people have different ideas and biases that come into their minds. And then you have to kind of get into what it is and what it isn't versus kind of instilling that, those beliefs, right? And those values that we all should really be inspired.
That was very helpful. So thank you so much.
So we have about 3 minutes left. Just wanted to kind of open the forum if there's anything else or anything in general that you'd like for the council to think about in terms of 2024, even if it's not about presentations or specific topics, but anything in general that you would like us to, bring back to the council and keep in mind as we move forward of what would be helpful to you. I know that there was a survey where we could ask questions there was a mechanism where we could ask questions of the team and sort of survey when we had a question. Megan or Jen, I don't know if that is still in place or if that's something that we're going to refresh, but I know that that is often something that comes to mind, and that there may be a question that teams bring up, and then we may want to pose that to this council, but it kind of happens in between those monthly calls.
Yeah, yes, there is. So everyone that's part of this council has access to, we call it the portal, and on the portal is a discussion board, and that will trigger an email out to anybody else who is linked to that council. And you can ask a question and you can respond right in your email to that question if you have feedback or advice or guidance for the asker of the question. If you need help navigating how to get there, feel free to reach out to myself or Jen, or a simple email is lens@nchl.org.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And maybe that could be something that, in early 2024 for any new members that we can just sort of refresh everybody or go through a demo. But I think that's really helpful. It's continuing that conversation, right? After we leave the council meeting. And so many wonderful questions and ideas that everyone can connect on.
Great. Thank you so much again, Janine, for helping facilitate the conversation today. appreciated it so much.
It's definitely my pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for all of your contributions and great ideas. So happy that some of the information shared, it seems, will be very helpful. So congratulations on all of your 2023 successes. And we look forward to continuing this discussion and partnering and collaborating in 2024. Happy holidays, everyone.
Sounds great. Same to you. Take
Thank
care,
you.
everyone.
Good job.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.